Hi there, Nancy Mueller here. Welcome to another Life is All About Choices. Today, I am very excited to share my special guest with you today. Her name is Michelle, and we're going to be talking about seeing midlife as a positive. Can you believe that? So stick with us. Michelle, welcome.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to speak about this.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to talking with you. I have to say that I've never looked at midlife as something to dread. But I know that there are many, many people who do, especially women. So, and based on our prior conversation, I have a feeling that this is going to be a really empowering conversation. So, before we go any farther, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and why you're so fabulous?
That's a great introduction. Who I am, my name is Michelle Aspinwall. I'm a coach, and I co-authored a book, and I also have a skincare line. All of these things go together in helping to show women how many different alternatives they have, that you don't have to just, do or be in one area, that you can actually be part of something much bigger. Although if someone had told me 6 months ago I was going to co-author with these other amazing authors, I would have kind of laughed, because I would have never imagined that, co-authoring a book was in the cards for me. But it was a really exciting experience, and it's really taking off with a whole life of its own. That's who I am, as well as being a wife and a mother and a daughter and a sister-in-law and all, a best friend and all of those things, which are all pretty amazing in their own right, as most women can attest. Like, we are a lot of people to a lot of people,
Yeah.
taking on a lot of different roles. And what was the second one? Who I am,
What you do.
what I do. Okay, so what I do is I work with women in midlife to understand a particular health slant, which is basically that midlife and hormones play a big part in how we interact with our daily life in that specific stage. I don't think women are necessarily before the age of like 42 so connected to their hormones in the way that they are in their 40s. At least that's what I'm trying to empower women to connect more with their bodies. And also in that is helping women align with time, because what we're doing with ourselves, to ourselves in our life right now, impacts the person we become in our 50s and our 60s
Yeah.
and beyond, much more so than what we did in our 20s and 30s. It's really what you do and the habits and the rituals that you create in your 40s, especially your mid 40s, that really change the trajectory for the good or for the bad. I mean, I don't really like those words, but for the positive or for the negative going forward. So aligning with time is a big part. It's something I've coined and something that I really talk about a lot with my one-on-one clients. And why I'm so fabulous. I did remember that question. That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that one. Um, I would say that my particular zone of intensity is how I combine both Western science and testing. And I'm a true modern woman, like a modern sensibility. I live in New York City. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a part of me that would love to have animals and raise my own food and all of that. But I actually hunt and gather from a concrete jungle situation. Um, but then I also combine a lot of Eastern modalities of healing to my clients and help them have a perspective from both East and West, and also that each woman is completely unique. I know everyone says that, but like, just when I think, oh, this kind of works for everybody, life throws me one or two that my usual kind of, things that I can count on in my business, in my coaching, they don't really work for these one or two, which is really exciting because it keeps me on my toes, but it also shows me it's not a phone it, set it and forget it kind of
Right.
experience. That women's bodies, we are unique bio machines that are so individual, that really understanding who we are from an emotional standpoint, a physiological standpoint, a constitutional standpoint, and a spiritual standpoint is all part of the makeup. And you have to kind of, to some extent, interact with all those different bodies.
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree with that. And You know, as with most guests on this video channel, we all have gone through some type of a dark night of the soul, so to speak, you know, where something happened that we just felt like, that's it, I'm done, stick a fork in me, I quit. And we, as we come out on the other side of it and we release that, we go on to create really fabulous work and get steeped in our work. And it has a lot to do with that experience that we had. What would you say was your experience?
I've probably had a couple. You know, my first true health experience or health scare was when I literally thought I was dying. Like I had all kinds of weird, random symptoms, and it took me about 2 years as they escalated to get a diagnosis. And for a lot of people, they believe that a diagnosis is the answer. Once you have the diagnosis, then you just create a plan and then you do it, right? You create a plan, and then with that plan, you know, the idea is that you'll feel better. Um, and for me, actually, the creation of the plan is part of what I didn't, parts of me felt better, and then other parts of me got worse. So that was kind of the first one. But the true pinnacle moment where I was like, okay, we got it, this is real, is I was on the table of the operating table with my first son. I had to have an emergency C-section, and I remember it vividly. I'd been laboring at home for a while, and we get to the hospital. I had started bleeding, and the doctor said, "Your placenta's abrupted. We need to operate immediately, or we're going to lose both of you." And I remember thinking, "What? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm perfectly alive. I can feel everything. Like there's no part of me that's dying right now." You know, I think everyone in childbirth would say that. Like there's no part of me right now that's not fully alive. But I remember so they gave me a really fast epidural. I'm strapped down, literally like Christ on the cross. My wrists were strapped down flat out. I was shaking. I couldn't feel pain, but I could feel the pressure of them opening me up. And it was definitely a moment where I felt angels around me. Angels isn't the right word because people put wings and feathers and white and all of that, but I could feel my family around me who have moved on. I could feel the very fierce feminine presence of my family telling me everything was going to be okay and sending me all the life force that they could, or that's the word I put to it. Who knows what it is? Um, I don't consider this really a near death experience. I just remember thinking, this is how precious it can be. And that was the moment that changed everything for me in terms of like recognizing the instantaneous preciousness of life. Like there was no part of me, I mean, I was in great shape. I'd been doing yoga, like exercising. There's no part of me that believed I was going to have a difficult pregnancy. I'd had no complications. Like everything was great. You know what I mean? And so that was that turning point of, you really have to start taking care of things. So that led me down the path of having another child. It was scary, but another one came, another one flew in. And through that process, both of my kids had different like health complications as little ones. Um, and I really kind of decided in the room with a group of doctors, like what they're proposing wasn't working for me. They weren't listening to our concerns. They didn't answer questions. And I just remember not the same group of angels flying over me, but I remember a very deep knowing, and I call it, I call it my knower. It's like right in here, right?
Yeah, got it.
My knower was talking to me saying, this isn't the way. Like I could feel, it was a very strong feeling. And so we elected not to do a procedure, and it was probably one of the best decisions we've ever made. My husband and I say, when I say we, of our lives, and certainly of our son's life. And I've never regretted that. And I've trusted that innate space within me ever since then. And I've lived from that place. And people can put lots of words on it, human design, or, some sort of cosmological uh, constellation sort of situation, but I really believe that it's this innate ability to be driven or shown the way by your soul
Yeah.
forward how to go. And so from all of these situations with my health, my children's health, soon to be another family member's health, my husband's health at one time, I really learned a lot about the
Mhm.
physiology of the human body. And I learned even more about uh, the interconnectedness of the mind, the body, and the soul. Everyone talks about this. This is very, very common in the wellness, health, and wellness space. But there is a true, almost Eastern or primitive sense that we are so connected, that every organ is connected to some other system or organ, and that you cannot mess with one without messing with something else. And mess, I don't mean mess it up, but I just mean, when a woman has her uterus taken out, it's not a very big organ by any means, but it does take up space in the cavity. And part of taking up that space is holding things in place and a connection together. And so I don't know how I got on that tangent, but here we are. When we mess with something, it messes with something else. So I'll leave it at that, because that was really, and that led me to go on to understand and study and be a part of like Eastern philosophy again. And but using Western science at its greatest, we're living in such an, I mean, I'm sure you would agree, we're living in such a dynamic time
Right.
medically in this country, at least in this side of the world.
Hmm.
I don't shun it away at all.
And I know you started out as a medicinal chef.
I
And
did.
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, how that
Okay,
kind of segued.
sure. So it's funny so in my last career set, I mean, I've kind of reinvented myself a couple of times. I really love doing it. I don't know, it's just fun. But I was a set and costume designer, and I also was a assistant professor at a university here in New York. And I left the university after the birth of my second, or right before the birth of my second son. I was like, I can't do this and my design career, thinking I'd go back to design. I never did. I stayed at home for a couple of years, raised the kids till they got ready to go to school. Then I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to work. I went, I tried to get interviews. I could not get an interview anywhere to save my life. Either I was overqualified for things that I was looking at, or people just, they were like, no. So the coaching food thing sort of fell into my lap, where I was offered a position to work for a particular person who this acupuncturist had connected me with this client. And she said he's unique and he has these specific conditions. And so I created a menu for him, and that's how I developed this business. So I had a couple of clients, and I did it for about a year, and I realized very quickly. So originally for me, food is the major shift for me. It's what turned me from a very low functioning, somewhat sick woman in her 20s to a high functioning mother of two, doing lots and feeling pretty fantastic at the age of 39. I felt better at 39 than I did at 29. I mean, that's really saying something about
Mm.
how sick I was. So yeah, so I went into people's homes. I created menus. I listened to what their symptoms were. I recognized what they were eating, and I tried to take into account what their tastes and preferences were. But I just basically recreated my version of something much healthier, nutrient dense, creating organ reserve. That's like my Eastern philosophy. We talk about creating organ reserve, especially for times of sickness. And so I did that for a year with, basically four clients, and it was fantastic, but it was a ton of work, and it was really hard, and it took a lot of time and a lot of like schlepping bags of groceries. And, it just, I realized after the first year of it and into the second year, I was like, this is great, but isn't actually the way. And so that's what led me into the coaching. But I did start as a medicinal chef.
And how difficult did you find,
Yeah.
um, you go into someone's home and you basically are looking at what they're eating. And then, and I'm sure you did it in a very diplomatic way, but I'm just going to throw it out there and go, so you said, no, that's crap. That's why you're feeling like you are. We're going to totally change this, and we're going to eat this way from now on. How did
Yeah.
you can't just tell people that, because, and a lot of people, they'll hire a coach or someone to take care of things, and they'll say, yep, 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 yep. And then the minute the door, closes behind them, they're like, great, let's get out the crap food, How did you connect the two?
So that's a great question. And part of why I left is because that was happening, and not to the extent before I came, but I made their food for the week. So it was all packaged and containered, ready for them to just reheat and eat. And for the most part, the two of the four clients were fantastic. Their health changed, it changed their life. It ended up changing the lives of one of person's family member. So that felt really rewarding. But one of the clients in particular, I would come back and only like 3 of the 12 containers would be empty. And I remember throwing all this food out and thinking, I can keep doing this, but there's something here that's not working. And then he would, there was another part of it where I would like make sure that he had done certain things that he needed to do. I don't want to go too much into it, but I was recognizing he was calling in takeout, and I thought, I can't really help someone that I can't care more about someone's health and someone's food choices than they care.
Right.
So that part of the business was very hard for me. And to some extent, we can all distance ourselves to some point, but it's very hard to go in and do work just for the sake of doing work. It's like, and then coming back and recognizing that everything you did, even though I was paid quite well for it, everything I did kind of wasn't working for them. And it wasn't about, he would say to me, it's not about the taste of the food. It's that I literally want to die. And at that moment, I thought, again, I can't really go into too much detail, but it was at that moment that I thought, I'm not really helping this person. And what I'm here to do is to co-create a different existence through a very healing modality, food.
Right.
And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not actually doing this person a service at all. And in fact, at some point I thought, I think I'm maybe doing him a disservice. Like, I don't want him to feel badly that he's not eating well, and that I'm coming here and doing this. So that was part of the work, kind of inherently the failure of the business, which helped me, all of our, quote unquote failures are always learning, turning points and moments. And what I'm doing now is directly related to everything I learned in that business. So that was kind of a pretty impressive education, for sure.
And I like that, because what you're sharing too is that you're looking at it from a very positive aspect of,
Oh yeah.
there's no such thing as failure. And mistake. I like to tell my clients, mistake, spell it this way, MIS-TAKE, like in the movies. Take 1, take 2, take 3. It doesn't matter if it's take 575,000,
Totally.
keep doing it until you get the scene that you want. And know that every time you do a new take, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's just getting you to that place where you really want to be. Plus, another thing that I really like about what you're sharing is that, you're letting people know that you went in and you said, okay, now I'm going to get back into the work field after your kids went to school. And, I think one of the most challenging things for anybody, doesn't matter who they are, is to go on interview after interview after interview and be no, 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 to get all those rejections. And that in itself is huge, what I hear you say, because, rather than say, nobody wants me, I'm too old, I've been out of work too long, you found a need and you filled it.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
then from there, you said, okay, I filled it, but I think that I can take this and do something even bigger, better, faster, stronger with it. And you did that as well. So it's, life forward, keep going forward, that forward momentum.
Totally.
So I know that you also work with women on their hormones and, helping them understand what that's all about in the body. And everyone is different, as you said. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Um, it's funny because you said, tell me one of your health like moments, and I'm about to tell you about another one. So round about 42, and I find this is kind of a common age. It's not everyone's age, but it is. Having worked with many, many women, 42 is a big shift for some, some majority of women in the Western world. um, 42, I had a massive shift in my life where I thought things are going well. I had a business, like my kids were doing great. My marriage I'm married to literally the most fantastic guy on the planet. I'm convinced of it. And I think to myself, like, how did I pick this guy in my 20s? Like, I had no idea what we would grow into, both as individuals separately and then as a couple, which is a whole other sect of like women really owning what they want out of life.
Hmm.
But at and around 42, I remember having this moment of, okay, why is everyone around me making me crazy? I want to scream and I just want to go run off and be by myself. My life is fantastic. Like, what is going on here? Right.
Hmm.
So I had this moment and then I started doing some reading and like my body started to change a little bit. I mean, nothing too horrible, but I just remember thinking like, oh, well, how come that's there? And how come I can't, like, all my tricks and, you know, we as women, we know our bodies, right? We know what we can do. We know how to make things work. We know how to shift things, or at least I feel like most women do. I do. And I thought, why is nothing working? Like, why are all my tricks not working? And so around 43, I figured it out. It's this crazy perimenopause thing that everyone's talking about. And it's like, for me, I first started to have a real mental shift where I started to really not care about things I used to really thought were really important to me. And then those things I didn't care about, I started to tell people I didn't care about. So like this whole mental shift started to happen. And I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if you have that same feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. My mom said I'll go through this someday. I was like, no, I don't think so. What, who listens to their mom? I mean, I'm a mom. My kids don't, they listen to me, but who knows, right? But I remember thinking like, is this the thing? Like, is this the way? I'm too young to be going through this. And the thing that I feel like women, like I want women to really understand is that through menopause, I'll go back to my experience, but menopause is one day, right? It's the day that you stop bleeding for 12 months. That's menopause. The build up to menopause, what we call perimenopause, can be 10, 12, 14 years, who knows, 16 years for some women. Some women really start the hormonal, I call it the hormonal roller coaster, in their late 30s. For me, that didn't really start until like 43, 44. And it's in pretty full drive now that I'm close to, I'll be 48 this next year, early in the year. And then everyone thinks, oh, everything's, once you stop bleeding, it's all better, it all stops. It's not usually the case. And I mean, it's like, I don't know why we don't talk about this. Like, it's just not talked about anymore. I mean, I know in my generation, most of our moms have had hysterectomies. I mean, that was the cure for
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of mothers, a lot of women who are like late 60 to like late 70, they didn't go through menopause, or they went through what's it called? What do they call it? There's like a medical term. Anyway, it's a forced menopause based on, the extraction of parts. So they don't, my mom had a hysterectomy. She has no idea what I'm going through. She didn't go through any of this.
Hmm.
She's this whole 10-year period. She kind of knows because she went through the beginning of it. The end of it, she's like, I don't know. It just kind of stopped. And then everything was taken care of. And of course, back then everyone had hormones. They were all given hormones for the lack of ovaries. But nowadays there's a lot of things to manage. And so what I work with women on, because I haven't gone through menopause, I have very few clients who are postmenopausal, just because I feel like I can help them a lot nutritionally and from a lifestyle perspective, but I can't really guide them. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I don't guide anyone through hormone replacement therapy, but I do testing that helps women have a more informed conversation with their doctor. Because here's the other thing, and Nancy, you'll attest to this like any other woman who's gone through it. Menopause is not a medical condition. So there's no menopause 101 in the textbook, right?
Right,
Like
right.
it is a physiological change. It's a shift in hormones. It is not a condition. It's not a condition to fix, cure, operate, or numb. It is a transition, both a physiological transition and, in my opinion, an energetic transition that women have to experience. And the more you experience it, the more you get from it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the less you try to work with it and the less you try to experience it, the less you're going to get from what you're meant to get from the transition of the experience. And that's more of like the energy and the sort of Eastern. My light just went off.
You probably have to wave, probably automatic. You have to wave your hand or something and get it
How
going
bizarre.
again.
Yeah, maybe.
But you're still well lit, so it's all good.
I'm still well lit. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
you look fabulous though.
Good. Okay. So that's what I work with women on. So women come to me usually with some sort of myriad of either health conditions or hormonal concerns. And they're the type of women who aren't really complaining about what's going on in the grand sense. Like they're not on some massive Facebook group of 10 to 20,000 just complaining and trying to get medical advice from anyone on the internet. They're women who are informed, who want to really understand what's going on, and who are ready to do the work. So that's the type of woman that I work with. That's who comes to me. That's who I attract. And that's the woman that I do the best with. I mean, I can't hold your hand and tell you this is going to be rainbows and unicorns, because for the most part, in the Western toxic or in this toxic environment that we live in, and I don't say that to be scary, it's just a very real issue that we live in a highly toxic world where our environment, we have to be really, really keen on what we put in our body, what we put on our body, and what we digest on a daily basis, like electronically, the television we're watching, the books that we're reading. We just, the more you're aware of what you're putting into your body, the more work you can do.
I absolutely agree. And I always remind women that anything that comes in contact with your skin gets absorbed into the bloodstream within seconds. So, when you're out there and you're going through these stores where everything smells good and, oh, let's try this and let's try that. And you have no idea about the chemicals and the ingredients in it, right there, that is one thing that you can do to make a complete difference on what happens inside your body. And, gosh, don't even get me started on this, fake air fresheners and, oh my gosh, all these things that our generations before us said, hey, look at this newest and greatest, let's do this. Household cleaners. And there is so much that we can do to take control of our health. And it's little shifts though. And again, it's all about your beliefs. If you say, well, my grandma always did it, my mom always did it, no, that's all what I always do. And it's so difficult for people to change that belief, that thing that they know. I call it the known zone. That's a Nancy word. So if anybody tries to Google it, it's a Nancy word. But it's that.
I love it.
Part of our mind where you say, I know this to be true. I know this is a fact. And so somebody could hold your feet to the fire and say, well, how do you know that? Well, that's the way my grandma always did it. That's the way my mom always did it. It's been my experience. And I know if I do that, this is going to be the outcome. And so they're not open-minded enough to say, maybe if I stop doing that and shift to something, just small shifts, little changes. And yeah, I could really get on my soapbox about the things we put on our skin, the things we put in the air, the cleaners we clean with, and fast food.
Yes.
Right there.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the, before I started studying hormones, I didn't understand the actual physiology of how they work. I didn't know that hormones are messengers and they start with the brain. So the doctor will, I mean, who hasn't been to the doctor and the doctor hasn't said, one way to help this condition, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's, insulin resistance, whether it's, it could be anything, high cholesterol. One of the things to help you, in your life is to manage your stress. Who hasn't heard that term, manage your stress? That
Mm.
doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore. Yeah, manage your stress, get better sleep. Manage your the key, not the key. The interesting thing about hormones is they begin in the brain. So it's perceived stress, it's physiological stress like an infection, whether it's something that you're actually aware of, or an underlying infection that your body's kind of dealing with all the time, or it's perceived stress outside, which is, your body doesn't know the difference between being chased by a tiger and in road rage traffic trying to get somewhere because you're going to be late and you have to pick up your
Mhm.
kids and then you got to get home and make dinner. Like, that physiological response is the same in the body. And so that whole shift and the whole hormone cascade happens based on how you think and perceive and move in your life and how you are aligning with this particular moment in time in your life. And I think women in particular, we take on a whole lot. We are the glue. We are
Right.
literally the glue of the world, as we should be. We have the ability to multitask and do multiple things at once. But to understand that at this level that we're functioning now, our modern society, in this toxic environment with food that's grown in particular soil, women have to really be serious about taking care of themselves and
Yes.
understanding the physiology of the body. And something that you said earlier rung very true to me about, things that smell. We love cozy, warm, smelling, like things that make us happy and feel good, that are effortless. And
Mhm.
I think scents, like fragrance, is one of those things. And what I want to just what if there's like a message I could give to women is like, take on the big things first. Like your face, my skincare line, obviously I care about what people put on their skin, but take care of your body. Your body is a 16-pound organ, on average. And it really does more than just keep everything intact. It's like the exterior boundary between the interior of your body and your exterior environment. And so what you put on your skin, like the whole organ, that's a lot of product versus
Right.
something you're just putting on your eye. So take care of the big stuff first and recognize that anything with synthetic fragrance, so either, the word fragrance or any kind of, at the very bottom of the label, fragrance is very small, it's very slight. So it's usually at the end of the label. All of those synthetic fragrances, they're not only endocrine disruptors because of what's going on in your skin, but the smell goes into the olfactory lobe, which is directly connected to the hippocampus, which is in the brain. Like, we're not just talking about, oh, it smells good, isn't that nice? Like, this is creates a direct chemical response in the body. So, and you're right. I mean, so something that I talk to my clients about, I mean, you obviously talk to your clients about this too, but like really having a curious mind
Yeah.
and aligning with time now is having a curious mind and really, really take on some of the things that you don't think are important or don't think would matter or don't think would be of such great importance, and just have a curious mind about it and try to ask the questions like, is there a safer product? Is there a less toxic product? Is there a way that I could impact the environment less but still have the experience? I think it's a big lesson. It's a big part of being a woman is finding these channels, um, that we can actually do for ourselves without feeling limiting, right? Without feeling like I can't have, because we're more than just, baby machines and like taxpayers. I mean, there's like so much more to life than that.
Yeah, and it's about taking control of your own life. I mean, you know, I hear so many people say, oh, no, I'm really staunch about not doing that. And I'm going to really take care of myself as they're pulling through the fast food place or, having their third cup of fruity booty something from the local coffee shop that has gazillions of calories in it and synthetics. And, we are in control of our body. No matter what anyone says, we have
Yeah.
control of our body. And one of the interesting things that I learned when I first was introduced to my nutrition products was that when you eat, when you take in nourishment, it feeds the brain first and then the rest of the body. I don't know why, but I was just so in awe of that knowing, that understanding, like seriously. So when you think about that, like, okay, so you're taking nourishment in and then it's going to feed your brain first. So if you are pulling through fast food all the time or processed food, and you're wondering why you're falling asleep at your desk or you don't have the energy to chase your kids or your grandkids or, whatever, it's like right there, you're not even being kind to your brain. And it's so important. The brain is so, so important.
Yes, it very much is. And women are affected twice as much as men for dementia, Alzheimer's, all of the inflammatory diseases of the nervous system and the brain. So it's an even greater responsibility that we have to ourselves, to our unit, to the world, to really find ways to take care of the brain protect it at its greatest um, capacity that we have. And something you said, I wanted to comment on something you said about the brain. In the East, they talk about eating. When you look at your plate of food and you eat something, like everything on that plate becomes your organs, your blood, your bones, your thoughts, your brain, your heart. Like all of that food is what makes us who we are. So if you so and this is not to let, I mean, I love a bag of potato chips like the next person, but I mean, there's a time and place for everything. And I think understanding that when you nourish your body with the highest quality food that you can find or gather, um, or can afford, and you really learn how to put things together, we're not lacking in information.
Mm-mm.
And to some extent, our culture has really given up um, true nourishment for convenience.
Yeah.
And that is that is the death of Western society, in my opinion, is how convenient and how fast and how immediate our food needs to be and cheap so that we can go on and keep working and working and working.
And it's all about love, don't you think? I mean, like, how are you loving yourself? Are you looking at that plate of food or that food choice that you're making? And when you think about it, as you said, like, this is going to become part of me, are you loving yourself? And it
Mhm.
isn't any different than your relationship with food or your relationship with a person or, relationship with how you think, your mindset. Your relationships matter,
Definitely.
every aspect.
Definitely. I mean, I've said this to a couple of my clients, like the way that women fill their plate is the way they live their life. If you are a woman who takes time and builds and finds the foods that nourish your unique constitution, and then you cook them and you put them on a plate and you arrange them, they don't have to be a work of art, for goodness sakes. But I am a person who loves, for example, in the summer, edible flowers. So a salad is a beautiful thing, just colors and smells and textures. But if you throw in a few nasturtium in there, then it just blossoms into this bounty of beautifulness, and it just excites my eyes, which I am 100% convinced nourishes me on a completely different cellular level. And
Mm.
not only that, it makes me excited to eat a particularly regular salad. You know what I mean? So I think, and then there are some women who, for lack of time or resources or whatever, they don't even eat from a plate. They eat standing up over the sink or they're eating the leftover food from someone's plate from their family because they don't have time. They think they don't have time to make something for themselves. But, you know, all we have is time. That's all we have in this life is the moment that we're living right now. There's no guarantee that an hour from now, your life will be exactly the same as it is yesterday at this hour from now. So, you know, it's something I'm sure you work with your clients on. It's something I really instill in women is like, fill your plate the way you want to fill your life. Fill it with love, fill it with color, fill it with joy, eat it with intention and purpose and true nourishment on there. And on occasion, yeah, have a burger and fries or have a milkshake or have a giant piece of cake and enjoy it to the fullest with no guilt.
Right.
But by God means, you know, by all means, don't choose that as your means to cope with your day because your life is so, you know, whatever it is. Like we always have the choice to change one small aspect of us. And with that choice comes the next choice. And then you start to build momentum. Momentum is the thing. I mean, it's the part of time that keeps everything from happening all at once, you know.
One of the things that came up for me as you were speaking was we could practice multisensory eating. You
Yes.
know?
Multi-sensory eating. I love it.
Yes.
Love it.
Just think, you know, you eat with your eyes, you eat with your smell, your sense of smell, all those before it even goes into your mouth. It's so,
Yeah.
and yet the thought process that you put in it and the love that you have for yourself for doing this wonderful thing for yourself.
Hmm.
Michelle, I love what you are doing for women. I am so glad that you
Thank
know,
you.
and I are having this conversation, and I just love it. Can you please tell people how to get a hold of you and where you hang out?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on the social medias. I'm Michelle P. Aspinwall on Instagram or Facebook, Michelle Aspinwall, or I have a Facebook group called Midlife Mecca. I go live in there. We talk about lots of things. And then my website is michelleaspinwall.com.
Fantastic. Well, I, for one, am very glad that you kept going through your experiences in life and you're doing what you're doing now because this information is so important. And I know that there are many women who are looking for, you know, these types of information. And that's what this channel is all about. Subscribe to our channel. Life is all about choices. This is all about, you know, a place on YouTube where someone can go when they're feeling confused, hopeless, discouraged, questioning life, wondering why that thing happened to me. You know, I have a multitude of people that I have conversations with, and just find one that resonates with you. And chances are, if you decide, let's see, I'm going to pick this one, it's exactly the message that you need to hear at that time. And that's why I feel very, very blessed to be not only bringing this channel to the world, but also for the beautiful guests like you, Michelle. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate your message and what you're doing.
Nancy, thank you so much. And you're such a light. You're such a light for everyone in providing this platform. And the questions were fantastic. And I just love connecting with you. And your energy is it's magnetic. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Really appreciate it.
You're absolutely welcome. And for all of you, remember, subscribe, comment, share, let people know this is how we are going to uplift everyone, one person at a time. In the meantime, this is Nancy Mueller saying ciao for now.